Good morning. Happy Memorial Day. I trust all of you guys that are watching or will watch have a great day and take time to remember what Memorial Day is really all about. I also want to say thank you to all of the folks that were able to join us in person yesterday and all of those that were able to join us online. It's I guess I love to know who's there, but sometimes I don't always know those things, but yet that's just the process that we're in right now. If you don't mind, take time to like us, share us, subscribe if you are not subscribed on the YouTube channel. Also, if you'll turn on your notifications when we go live in different events, you'll have a information that will, I guess, notify you to do that. And join us. I'm going to share with you this morning a brief devotion. We've been talking about unlikely heroes. We've talked about Gideon. We've talked about Jeremiah, Rahab the harlot. We've talked about the leper, Mary, the mother of Jesus. Last week we talked about Barnabas. And I had a request and to share an unlikely hero. And Jason Barrett, this one is for you. We are going to talk about Zacchaeus this morning. Zacchaeus is a song that I grew up with, and I think that all of you probably that spent time in church growing up, and if you didn't, you probably don't know this, but yet Zacchaeus was a wee little man, and a wee little man was he. But yet there's more to the story to Zacchaeus than just that. I want to read to you just a little bit this morning. It's found in Luke chapter 19. Though the verses go all the way to verse 10, 1 through 10, I may only read just a few. So I'm going to read out of the New American Standard Version. Follow along with me in your favorite version as well. It says, he, talking about Jesus, entered Jericho and passed through, and there was a man called by the name of Zacchaeus. He was the chief tax collector, and he was rich. Zacchaeus was trying to find Jesus. Let me reread that. Zacchaeus was trying to see who Jesus was and was unable to because of the crowd, for he was small in stature. So he ran ahead, climbed up in a sycamore tree in order to see him, for he was about to pass through that way. And when Jesus came to that place, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, hurry and come down, for today I must stay in your house. And verse 6 to me is very important. He hurried and came down and received him gladly. Let's stop right there. We may pick up a little bit the next few verses after a little bit, but yeah, let's talk about Zacchaeus a little bit. One day, as Jesus was going on a journey, he was passing through Jericho, and he met a man named Zacchaeus, though in a very unconventional way. This encounter is one of the most interesting stories of all the Gospels because of the tremendous applications to the majority of people. And what do I mean by that? This spectacular story is spectacular because he is not like any other characters who encountered Christ. He was not called as the disciples were, nor was Zacchaeus suffering from an ailment or some kind of affliction. He was an average man in most capacities. And that's what makes it so special, is I believe that Jesus wants us to know and understand that he's not just for the special, he is for the average. He is for those that are common people, and that's you and I for the most part. There are three things that I looked at in this story that I find very interesting about Zacchaeus. Number one, his identity. He was known as being a short man, short in stature. People recognized him by his size. And maybe you know somebody that they're identified by their physical characteristics. And we can even make judgment about people in regard to that. They're tall, they're pretty, they have red or blonde hair, or no hair at all. They're ugly, they're fat, they're rich, they're poor. Too many times we have labels, and that's how we know people. The sad reality of the Western culture is that often we assign value to people based upon physical appearance. And obviously we know that Jesus does not do that. Zacchaeus climbed up in a tree to get a look at Jesus, but he also wanted Jesus to see him. Do you think? That's the identity part of who Zacchaeus is. But yet, we also learn a little bit about his identity of his position. Zacchaeus was a chief tax collector. In today's world, perhaps you would know him as an elected official, a football coach, a teacher, a doctor, a dentist, a coworker, maybe no-name people, but yet they have a position. You really don't know the person, but you know what position or title they hold in society. Maybe to me, I'm pastor, but you don't know who I really am. You just know I'm pastor. I'm speculating because the Bible doesn't say much about his personal life, but I know that there was more to the man than just collecting taxes, which had to have its own set of problems. Being a tax collector could be very lucrative because the Bible even said he was rich, but it never said it would be easy. So it comes to a third part of his identity, not only his physical condition, not only physically, not only professionally or his position, but acceptance. Everyone in town hated Zacchaeus. Why? Because he was the tax collector. He lived under constant stress of working for the Roman Empire, which had a reputation of executing the hired help. Leaders in the empire even had killed members of their own family. While others saw a tax collector, Jesus looked past the physical side. He looked past the position. He looked to the man. And he saw a man that, number two, the thing that I noticed about Zacchaeus was he had spiritual curiosity. Most of the characters in the Bible experience a call from Christ, either personal invitation or through public preaching or teaching of Jesus. Notice this about Zacchaeus. He was a successful man in his society, in his town. He worked hard to move up the success ladder and earn the title of chief tax collector. And obviously, the Bible said, we've said it earlier, he was rich or wealthy. The text seems to indicate that Zacchaeus operated, though, with integrity. Because after Jesus had invited him, basically he invited himself into his home, he said salvation had come to his home, and Zacchaeus had changed his life. And notice what he said. He said, if I have cheated. He wasn't aware. Now, it is assumed that Zacchaeus was a crooked man. You say, well, all tax collectors were crooked. Now, that's what we say about a lot of people in our society, too. We say that all politicians are crooked. We say that all lawyers are liars. We say that all preachers care about his money. We make general assumptions that Jesus did not make. Zacchaeus does not appear to have any observable need. He is just simply curious about who Jesus is. You see, God puts that within us. He puts within us the desire to know more about him. Now, we can fill that desire with things of the world, or we can allow God's Spirit to draw us closer to him. Please note, human beings are spiritual beings first. No amount of worldly success, possessions, can satisfy the deepest longing of the soul to know God. Lost people, they don't need our music. They don't need our wisdom. They don't even need our nice facilities or even our great sermons. What lost people need is Jesus. And that's what Zacchaeus needed. Zacchaeus wanted to see who Jesus was. He wanted to see what the fuss was all about. And he knew his limitations, but yet he did not allow any of that to get in his way. He ran ahead of the crowd, climbed up in a tree so that he could see the man Jesus. Which brings me to the last thing I want to share to you about Zacchaeus. He had purpose. The story of Zacchaeus concludes with his life being distinctively different after meeting Jesus. I've already said this, but Jesus made a bold declaration. Salvation has come to your house. Zacchaeus got saved. Zach got saved. He was born again. And what we must really understand is we must be careful to understand that Zacchaeus did not purchase his salvation by giving money to the poor. His actions just reveal a life transformed by the encounter of Christ. Now please note this, because I think sometimes we have a misunderstanding of this. After experiencing the love of Christ, after experiencing the transformation in his own life, he became more concerned about others than splurging on selfish desires. Another interesting part of this story is that Zacchaeus did not change his profession. You see, the reality is God needs men and women that are hungry for him, have become successful, blessed by God, but yet then able to help the ministry. I believe that's a unique calling, a unique gift that God places in people's lives. But too many times we want to spend our success on ourselves, not on the kingdom. That wasn't the case with Zacchaeus. He was a tax collector before he met Christ, and he continued to be a tax collector, collecting taxes after he met Christ. His job was the same, but his purpose and his future was different. He now used his job as an opportunity for glorifying God. And you don't have to become a vocational pastor, a minister. You don't have to leave your calling of what you do every day to become full-time in ministry. You just simply need to serve Jesus with a whole heart. Let me conclude this way. The kingdom of God needs Christ's followers in the marketplace, shining the light of the gospel. Now, I'm a little different in that. I began in the marketplace. I left the marketplace to go into ministry because I felt I had a call. I fought it for many years, but yet ultimately I gave in to that call, and I'm very thankful that I did. But many people's call is the marketplace, and we have to understand that role in that process. He overcame many obstacles. His reputation, how people perceived him, his size, in order to see Christ. And once he saw Christ, then his life was changed. Even with all the obstacles, Zacchaeus could not ignore the longing in his soul that drove him to the presence of Christ. That's what I want to leave you with today. There's a saying that I read, and maybe you've heard this saying too. To reach the fruit of a tree, you must go out on a limb. And that's exactly what Zacchaeus did, is he went out on a limb in order to see Jesus, but ultimately meet Jesus. And I love the part when Jesus said, "Hey, Zacchaeus, get out of the tree." And he immediately came. He didn't hesitate. He came and welcomed Christ into his home. Follow his example by not allowing anything to prevent you from receiving all that God desires in your life. Again, happy Memorial Day. Thank you again for being here. Send us some comments, like us, share us. Keep your notifications turned on. God bless you. I will see you Wednesday night live is my next event. But don't forget there's other engaged things and different online events throughout the week. God bless you.